Welcome to Married Unfiltered. I'm Ramon.
I'm Kia.
And in this episode, we're going to talk about those bitter women who love to get involved in married people's relationship.
We're not going to just say it's bitter women, but it's people being involved in other people's relationships, period.
People. All right. So, all right, let's get into this, man. So, what this topic all comes from is I have a lot of conversations with some cool people at work, mostly guys. And from time to time, we'll have these conversations about how everything in their relationship is going well, but then there's these outside influences that their women are having with their friends that come into their relationship. And what it all boils down to is like a lot of those women are single, divorced, or never married, and they seem like they have so much to say. They have so much to say about what the guy isn't doing or should be doing, and all these gender roles and all this other type of stuff. And so that's where my frustration lies. Like, you know, if you got a man and everything's working in your relationship, like, why are you bringing those conversations back home to your man, and now he has to address those things? So
go ahead.
I was just saying that's the background to maybe why in the intro you saw that, that heat.
He says bitter people, but I say these are women talking to their friends about the situation. I wouldn't make the assumption that these women are divorced or single. I mean, they may be, but they may not have a man. So I'm gonna put it kind of in my perspective from, I guess, a women's eye, through the women's eye. So let's just go ahead and talk about your frustration.
Okay, so my frustration, it's compounded because me and Kia have a really great relationship. And there's been times where, and even I'm hearing about this with other guys too, so I'm just using us as that first example. But we're having a really good relationship, everything is going well, and then from time to time she'll sprinkle in a little bit of something that is new to me. Case in point, hey, do I cook enough? And I'm like, yeah, you're cooking fine. Week later, hey, are you happy with, the amount of times we have sex? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Then, later on down the line, hey, I was just wondering, like, do you insert comment there, right? And I'm just like, where's all this coming from? Like, talk to me, like, where's this coming from? And then it comes out, well, I was talking to X, Y, and Z and blah, blah, blah. And before you know it, I'm like, I don't care what them other women say or how they feel or what's going on in their minds and how their relationship worked or hasn't worked in the past. It doesn't bother me. Like, why is that something that now I have to deal with? And a lot of other guys are having the same situation where it's like, yeah, wifey came home, she said something, and I didn't think too much of it. And 2 days later, something else come up, and now all of a sudden, Terrence does X, Y, and Z, and I'm supposed to be what goddamn Terrence is doing. And I'm like, I ain't Terrence.
Let me interject a little bit, husband. Let me interject.
That's where you're coming from, though.
So, no, I feel you on that. So, like, what I'm saying is when women go and have these conversations, I wouldn't say that all the time, because there are times where people are just being nosy and being bitter and being in your business. But I think in my situation specifically, it's us just having conversation and hearing what's going on. And I think there may be some deep down insecurities for me that I'm like questioning myself, like, oh, am I not doing enough? I don't think there's any maliciousness coming from folks when they say things or, oh, what you don't do, or me comparing myself to them. But I think as women are just human beings, we sometimes don't feel like we're good enough. And I could be perfect in your eyes, but oh, that's sweet. But for me, I always feel like I can find holes in who I am. And I think me coming to you, asking you those questions weren't necessarily bitter people or people who weren't happy in their situation. It was me and some of my insecurities about myself and being a wife. Because at the time, now I'm still learning how to be a wife. I think every day we change, and as people, we are constantly changing. So if today I'm like, well, babe, I don't know if I cook enough. How are you feeling? Do you think that I'm upstanding my role as a wife? But maybe tomorrow I'll feel like I'm doing more than enough and I'm good. So I wouldn't take it as personally and as deep as you may think, but I do hear what you're saying about the bitter people and people trying to talk down, because luckily I've never been in that situation, but I have seen in cases where the person who may not have a man, or the person who may not have been in a relationship, had got a lot to say for somebody who doesn't really have that background to say it. I think opinions are fine, but when it feels like where I'm hearing from you that it's almost being forced down some of these women's throats that, oh, well, your man should be doing this, my man's doing this. And at least from my experience, I haven't specifically to me, but I have felt that from other people.
Well, okay, I can understand that. But I would say at the same time, it's how it gets to me and us guys when we're in this situation. So, like, do you, after I say something that sparked a conversation that you had with someone else, now I said X, Y, and Z, and it's just like when Tamika told you blah, 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 blah. Like hold on, what Tamika say? You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's those issues, because like, what the outside influence will say, well, be careful. Don't let your man go out and do this. Don't let him do that. And don't let him go. Because if he do, he gon', and then da. And then after all that stuff comes out, I'm like, hey, babe, me and the guys are going to go, no, I'm coming with you. Like, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, we've never had those issues before. And after your conversations, we're now starting to have issues. I'm like, okay, maybe it is some type of insecurity.
Because I think it feels like there's the assumption of the other woman, or who these other women they're talking to, coming off that way. But maybe it's just the insecurity of the woman who's like, it makes them think a little bit. And it's like, well, damn. And
if I need to be more like aggressive in saying, woman, you good, you golden, I love you, I don't want nobody else but you. You are the light of my world and the apple of my eye. If I need to do a better job on saying that type of stuff, let me know. But don't come sideways like you not glorifying me enough, and now you getting upset. And I think a lot of that is being integrated into these relationships, and it's.
So do you think that as women, we should not come to our man when we have maybe a concern, or that insecurity starts to show from these conversations we have with other women? Or how should we approach the conversation? Maybe that's really how it should go.
I think it's all about the approach and the communication set, right? I think any good guy, and people know, you know your man. Any good guy would want to hear your concerns and want to hear, about your insecurities and how you feeling. But let me know that that's where it's coming from. Hey, I'm feeling X, Y, and Z, and it's coming from you. The minute you tell me that you was having a conversation with someone else,
I think you're so caught up in the conversation with someone else.
But I mean, I understand that, and I'm saying that for a purpose, because if I'm caught up with the conversation of someone else, what do you think another dude's gonna be caught up with?
But what if they don't recognize it as an insecurity? And like, I'm throwing it out there being an insecurity, but maybe they don't really recognize it, and it's just kind of popping up after having these conversations with these other women.
Just say we need to talk about how.
Can we talk about something? But I feel like, do you think I've approached you in those situations about the cooking and the being gullible or whatever I said? Do you feel like I said such and such did this?
No. It wasn't verbatim. Okay. It wasn't verbatim. So, but and
do you feel like well, ideally, I took that conversation and came to you with my concern, but.
What are these concerns you had previously before you've had those conversations?
No, but what's wrong? Well, what is wrong with me coming to you about it? Because now I got something to talk about.
There's nothing wrong coming to me with this, but now I'm feeling like there is something wrong with our relationship that you're trying to address that I'm not aware of.
Maybe there's nothing wrong with the relationship. It's just trying to figure out yourself. I don't know. Because I think you're taking it as there being an issue. I don't think that necessarily means an issue when your woman comes to you with concerns.
No, it's not. It's not always an issue.
Even if the concerns stem from a conversation with somebody else.
But I do need to understand where we at in the conversation. Like what are you really trying to ask me and tell me? And if this is something that you truly feel, or is this something that you're just trying to ask me just to kind of check and see if, you're left, right, or center of everyone else. Because I'm not concerned with everyone else. I'm just concerned about us.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where those things, like the conversation, the dialogue is great. I love it. But I don't want to feel like I'm trying to I now have to uphold to a standard that someone else has, in my relationship.
So can we say that it's nothing wrong with coming to your man with questions or concerns that you may have gotten from a conversation with a group of women? That's not an issue,
not
right?
an issue.
Okay, so the issue is when there is doubt in your relationship, or there's doubt in the relationship overall. So I would say in this situation that if you come to your man with concerns that may have stemmed from a conversation with your girlfriends, come to him with the questioning of how can we, work on this, or let him know what your concerns are, and not necessarily what someone else is doing or what someone else said, but just getting that concern.
Sometimes it's like, it could be like, do we need to work? Is this a problem for you? And if the dude say no, then it's no, and let's not bring it back up again. Because if you do, then it seems like, is it a problem for you?
Okay.
Maybe that's a follow-on question I should have asked initially.
I think you kind of said it best. So it's not an issue. It's nothing wrong with women coming to their man or partner with the situation, but it's all on how it's taken or communicated. That's where you want to say how it's communicated. So I think this stems into, how do you control kind of that narrative that you're getting as women when we have those conversations with other women? How do you kind of control that conversation going back to your man? How do we not jump down the throat of our husbands?
First off, I hope when y'all having them conversations, you like, my man is the greatest guy on the planet. I don't know why you having them issues with your man, but me and mine is straight, and then y'all let them go and proceed.
I think that's a good point.
I mean, because reinforce, because I ain't in y'all conversation, so if I'm doing well, reinforce to them that,
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. But I can get the feeling of doubt, because even as much as you say you're good, it's like people want to constantly hear you explain why you're good, because it can't be that great. You can't be doing that well. And it feels like that they want to hear this negative piece.
I saw him look at that girl booty when we all went to Buffalo Wild Wings, and you let that stuff slide.
But if I don't care if he's looking at another girl's booty, what difference does it make? For me, I mean, if we take that as an example, for me, I trust my man, and I know who he coming to. If he think that woman got a fat ass, I'm like, she do though. Do you think it's real? Do you think it's real? And that'll be a question that we would ask.
That's
and
a
keep
Florida
it moving.
question.
Yeah, it is a Florida question.
Think that booty real or no?
Exactly. So for us, it's not a problem, but I think it's when other folks kind of give that notion that it's a problem for them. I mean, I understand if you don't want your man doing that's fine, but shit, it don't bother me. It never has. I'm like, she got a fat ass? Yeah, she got a fat ass. Like, hey, these women need to stop walking around with fat asses. I don't know.
All right, I think we went kind of off track.
Sidetrack.
All right, so what was the thing? Yes.
Basically, how do we, as women, approach our man with the conversation of what we heard from other women? And to your point, I think it all starts with the original conversation that you're having with your girlfriends, letting them know, hey, I'm good. Me and my husband, that's not something that bothers me or whatever. But if it is something that bothers you, you take it in, you listen. You don't have to jump down your husband's throat, but come to him with, hey, we and the girl was talking, and this came up, blah, blah, blah. I mean, what do you think? How do you feel about it?
Yeah.
And I think that's really where you can go.
That approach is probably great. And not every conversation that you have with your girls, just like every conversation that guys have with guys, don't need to come back home. Like, I don't need to know everything.
I like to tell everything, though. So
I don't need to know everything.
That's how he feels, but I like to tell everything.
So
I can't help it.
Just like that. I
understand.
So if you come through it, I'm just like, what the hell? Like, come on now. And he's like, cool, baby, I understand.
As women, we do need to respect the fact that if our husband feels some type of way, we can't be angry that they have their own opinion of what we said. Because to Ramon's point, if he's like, where's this coming from? You can't be mad at where it's coming from, because it did kind of come out of nowhere. But they also have to, respecting each other's opinions is going to be the important piece, of what we have to say is going to be important. And I think that's what kind of worked out.
Absolutely.
for us, even though for me it kind of came out of left field, I guess.
It came out of left field multiple times, and then we had to have a real conversation about what's going on.
Yeah, but that's okay. But the fact that you were open to having that conversation of what's going on, we were fine.
Yeah, and maybe this is a plug for the dudes to ask that amplifying question. Like, I mean, when she first started coming to me with all those outside concerns, I was kind of like, But then when I realized by having them conversations with my homies that this is a common thing, I'm like, well, that's what sparked me to tell her, hey, all right, look, let's talk. Like, what's up? Mm-hmm. Like, what's up? Like,
so maybe that's what you need to tell your ladies. What's up? Talk to me. What is the issue? Because it may be more than you even know, Yeah,
it may not even be that serious, but now since that communication thread is it's not put together, there's a missing key, and now you have to like try to figure out where that's at, and the only thing you can do is communicate to get that rectified.
Yeah. So I would say the next thing is like those women giving that bitter advice. How do we address that? I'm not going to say bitter advice, but I do think people should be cautious into the things they say. Now, whatever you do with your man, that's a conversation. It is what it is because it's the truth. But you telling someone what they should do and what they shouldn't do and what they would allow their husband to do and what they wouldn't do, that is really not necessary. Yeah. And I mean, I think one thing I always say is, I do this, this, and this. But that's just me. That's exactly how I go off because I don't want anybody to feel like what I do is gospel. I think something we have said on multiple occasions is everybody's relationship is different. And what I do is different than what someone else does. So I'll give you my opinion or I'll give you my thoughts, but please do not run with that shit. And please do not feel like it's the tell all truth. And I think making that that headline or that staple in the beginning can be helpful for some women who really may be, you don't even realize some of your friends may be really down and out and almost running with any and everything you say. So just being cautious of the things you say, because I know Ramon thinks that this is bitter women, but I don't feel like those are necessarily bitter women. I just think those are very strong, opinionated women who have a very different mindset than other folks. But that doesn't mean your mindset is the right mindset or right for that person. So just keep that in mind when you're having conversations with your friends or your family, because it can really hurt possibly their relationships because they're taking what you say to heart.
Yeah. To add to that, maybe you ain't bitter. The bitter woman that's watching this right now, maybe you are a strong, opinionated woman. And I apologize for calling you bitter. Maybe you're not.
Y'all, we gotta pause that because I love that apology because the word bitter probably was not the right thing.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I mean it. No, I have a thing with my face. It doesn't show emotion. However, I do apologize. But then think of it like this, strong, opinionated person. If your strong opinions are having an adverse effect on someone else's relationship, you might want to reevaluate how you get your message across.
I can live with that.
And a lot of the times, you're not going to know, because I would doubt that person that you spoke to said, my husband came off the top of the rope, after your advice. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure they're just gonna eat it and keep it to themselves and be like, this chick don't know what she's talking about. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, you think you will. You think I'm good. I know what I'm talking about. So if you really want to give helpful advice, follow up. See if that advice actually worked. See if if you do have some good thoughts and key insight. Because if you just spewing out of your emotions, it's kind of hard for me to say I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. I'm good with that. I think that was a good call. So we changed Ramon's mind in this. No longer bitter, but strong opinionated. Very good.
Maybe.
All right. So I think we are almost at that wrap-up point.
Hey, I think we did good on this one, man.
Yeah.
I think we did good on
that was
this
a good conversation.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So what I would say the takeaway for this and wrapping this all up is be cautious of what you're taking away from other people. It's not always going to be gospel and it's not always the right thing, but there's nothing wrong with hearing something and maybe having some concern and showing that to your spouse or a partner. I think you had some good suggestions.
Okay.
We're not counselors or nothing, but these are just our thoughts. So we're gonna wrap this up, and we're Married and Unfiltered.
And we like to keep it that way.